Welcome, everyone, to the Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell podcast. And it is my pleasure today to have Billie Aadmi with me as a brain trainer and somebody who really understands where we need to go with energy dynamics and moving ourselves forward. Welcome, Billie. Thank you for being here.
For having me.
Let me share a little bit about Billie before we get into our topic today. So she is the founder and CEO of Go Mindspire Inc. Her mission is to serve others to uplevel their mindset for lifelong success. And through her own healing journey and growth, she's joined the coaching world as a brain trainer. She is working on personal development and self-awareness, and she knows she can share the lessons that she's learned throughout her life to help others lift themselves up again and to come back stronger and come into the power of their highest potential. Billie's a single mom. She has two beautiful children and a fur baby. And she has a Bachelor of Education and a Bachelor of Human Kinetics. She's been a police officer since 2005, as an active real estate investor as well. You have a lot of different diverse things that you do.
I
she's,
do.
she's a trainer of NLP, master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming. She's loves timeline therapy and hypnotherapy, as well as master results coaching. And she is a master teacher of magnified healing. Those are a lot of big titles with a lot of very powerful tools. So I hope you're ready to dive into the concepts with us, because we're very excited to share what is really possible for people as they transform and move forward. So Billie, before we get that conversation started, did you choose a tea for today? What did you bring?
I chose mental clarity.
Awesome. Awesome. And you have several teas there for a course that's coming up that you're offering. Do you want to just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we basically what we do is we help you get out of your own way. And a lot of the times we just need to rewire the brain, create new neurology, and allow people to be their best self. Because it's all these self-limiting beliefs and blocks that are just sabotaging our own efforts. So when I learned about this tea, so my partner Melissa, my co-trainer, and I, which is how we got connected, when she suggested, "Hey, Billie, do you want to add some of these teas as gifts to our students?" And when I learned about the purpose of them, and I love what it says here on mental clarity, is when we know where we are going, the path clears and we can focus on the little things that matter the most. And since we talk about in our courses teaching people how to get from victim island over to solution city, once you can focus on where you're going, clear out all the unnecessary noise, it just makes the journey that much more clearer and possible. Because right now, a lot of people just don't know where to go or how to get there. And they don't even know really what they want. So if you can have a tea that can help assist and, help you get into those alpha theta brain waves, which is what we do when we're tapping into the unconscious mind. I mean, it's a win-win for everybody. And they taste great too.
Exactly. Exactly. And mental clarity is the tea that I actually pulled out today to talk about so that I could isolate some of the herbs. So for our listeners, I wanted to share the way that I look at tea. So Billie's talking about how that tea is going to assist their coaching sessions to help people easily move into the concepts that they're going to be teaching them to use. And that's a different way of thinking about how tea can be
Mhm.
all powerful for that kind of transformation. So let's look at a couple of the herbs within the blend because they've been specifically put together to bring about that message. So as you were talking about the affirmation that's on the package, every tea in Cape Breton Tea Company has an affirmation. Some of them have 4 or 5 because they have other ones on the back side. Mental Clarity is part of the Harmony Blends series. And this is one that helps people move through trauma situations or challenging situations to finding resolutions and moving forward, getting out of their stuckness. And mental clarity is at the end of that journey. It's on that place where you get out of the muck and then your brain opens up and you go, what is now possible? And I
Mhm.
wasn't even looking at those possibilities before. And now I really see this is where I want to go. And it provides the space for that little transformation within the mind to imagine the new possibilities. So if we take, when we know where we're going, the path clears and we can focus on the little things that matter most, we do get stuck in the static and we do get stuck in the old stories. And this is a way for those to just not be important anymore. And it's funny how that transition happens. So let's look at the two herbs that I pulled out. So we have mint. Mint is all about vitality and rejuvenation, and it inspires us to dig a little deeper to find the true meaning behind our words and our actions. So
Mhm.
sometimes we say things just because it's been that way for so long, or you've always said it that way, or you always thought it that way, or somebody in your past said it and you just picked it up and carried it along. But the mint actually transforms you into making powerful words come out that move you forward.
Mhm.
And people often think of mint as something, well, I'll have that because it's good for digestion. And they're trying to use it as a medicine, and that one stop is going to fix all problems. But the mint then has this completely different thing when you start to think about it. It opens space, it opens possibility, and it changes the way you do things.
Mhm.
So then if we pair that with ginkgo, ginkgo is a gateway to intuition and honoring our dreams and aspirations. So if you consider the relationship of those two herbs together, there's a love that is cultivated for our acceptance of ourselves and what we truly want, and then the realizing of the potential that can happen and that it can be with ease and grace. And that's what you're talking about with your program, because you have the tools that can help people move easily and gracefully through. And then when you're sipping on this tea, yeah, there's that easy button. So for those
Love it.
people on the podcast, she's holding up that easy button.
I've heard this enough times in the work that we do that I got the easy button because it doesn't have to be hard. If it's hard, you're just doing it wrong. Not to be mistaken for effort.
Yeah,
It takes effort to grow, and it
yeah,
takes comfortableness to grow because growth is never comfortable and it's always inconvenient, as we say. However, it doesn't need to be hard. And I hear that so much because really it's all about neurology. If you've learned to do things one way, why can't you learn to do things another way? It's the same thing. So, like you said,
exactly.
putting up possibilities. Well, what if it could be possible for you to get out of this stuckness that you're in? What if it could be possible for you to be successful and for you to actually reach your greatest goals and your greatest dreams? What if?
What
And
if?
that's what I love sharing with people.
Exactly, exactly. So if you think about, that's just two of the ingredients within the tea, and they're working together in harmony rather than one herb trying to fix everything. They work together as a package, and then they support those dreams and aspirations that you can identify in a course like what you're going to be offering. Okay, so I'm going to sip on the tea because I want to activate that for all the people on the podcast. Because as you're listening, I always set it up that it's a healing session while you listen. And so if you have water where you're at, you have tea, whatever you have, just you sip on that. But I've got these herbs engaged with us for today. And I have it. I chose my mug today is the Mind Institute.
Oh,
So
nice.
this was the brainchild of a lovely, lovely professor in California. But I'm just going to say cheers. Really, thank you for coming to enjoy this conversation. Here we go. Oh, and then you have also what's important that I should identify for people is when you smell the blend first, that immediately bypasses all those inhibitions you have and puts you into possibility. People
Mhm.
don't realize that. So it's a lovely way to engage on that. All right, so let's dive in. Um, I wanted to start with your background first because you have some really incredible education behind you. And I want to talk about how that education kind of led you through to what you're doing now. And you are in the police field, but can you dive a little bit into how you chose to take the education you did and
Yeah,
the choices you've made?
sure. I know everything happens for a reason, and our journeys are just that, a journey. Nothing is a destination, and a lot of us try to get somewhere. And in our world, we say you're never done because when you're done, you're dead. So let's never be done. And that means evolving, growing, learning. We're never done. So I went to school to be a teacher, which I did human kinetics and education because I wanted to teach physical education. I want to teach sports. It was fun. To me, it was fun, right? My upbringing was different in that I grew up in a very traditional East Indian family with two brothers, being the only girl, being told my entire life I couldn't do things because I was a girl. And so imagine me as a little child being shaped into who I was, being told that I couldn't do something because of how I was born. Some people would say, oh, that's too bad. I look at it now as I'm so glad that happened because it pushed me to be stronger. It pushed me to be resilient. It pushed me to prove them wrong. And it wasn't now I look back, it wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right. Because in my mind, I had that little voice, and now I know what that little voice is. It's my unconscious mind talking to my higher self, telling me, Billy, you're made for more. No, you're not small. You have a bright light. You have all this. And so I would listen a little bit and I would kind of ignore it for a little while and I would start listening again. I would ignore it. I went to school to be a teacher because my parents at the time wanted me to have a university education because nobody in our family did, nor with my family, parents' family, because they came from India. I was first generation born here. And, in our culture, girls are bred to be married, right? They're bred to be wives. They're bred to, take care of the family. And it's a very common thing that us as women in our culture are bred up, are raised to be. So my parents wanted me to go to school because, people want to marry an educated girl. They don't want to marry an educated girl. So my way of rebelling was, well, I'm going to do what I want to do then. I'm not going to go be a doctor or engineer. I'm going to be a teacher because it's fun. And fun was important to me. I wanted to enjoy what I was doing. And I went to school to be a teacher and I found out that I wasn't really keen on the public school system. I tried a whole bunch of other things. My heart was really always into, entrepreneurship. However, in our culture, women don't do business, right? My brothers were pushed into business. I was pushed into, get the job. The whole rich dad, poor dad. My brothers got rich dad, I got poor dad. Go to school, get a job, get into the system. And so I was always trying different things. However, I felt like I was never supported in it because, your family's a big proponent of support in your life. And when I didn't feel that support, I felt I sabotaged myself unknowingly because those limiting beliefs were playing in my head that, well, you're not meant for business. You're meant to get a job. So policing was always something that interested me because now I know why, is because underneath it all, I felt like I was so treated unfairly that I wanted to fight justice for others. And I've learned about my archetypes, and one of my archetypes is Avenger and one is Rescuer. So I mean, there's no surprise that policing was a career that I was really attracted to. And I wanted at the core of me to be of service and to help. And as cliche as that sounds, that I wanted to give back, policing seemed like the ultimate service of, act of service for police for giving back. And I enjoyed it and it served its purpose. And then when I had children, things changed because obviously there's an element of danger and I wasn't really feeling fulfilled in it. And for me, again, like I said, I want to enjoy what I'm doing. If I don't feel like I'm enjoying it, I don't put my heart into it. And when you're doing a job like policing, you have people's lives in your hands. And if you're not enjoying it, you don't want to be half-assing that kind of job because you have people's lives in your hands. And so I went off the road ever since I had children due to some injuries and then I get just started putting it out to the universe. I'm like, I don't want to be a cop anymore. I still want to serve. I still want to give back. What should I do? The pandemic happened and I went through my divorce and, my whole family situation fell apart. It was part the hardest time in my life emotionally. And for me, the pandemic was actually a blessing because it allowed the world to stop. And it allowed me to take inventory. And it allowed me to really check, well, what's happening in my life? How did I get here? How did I become a single mom? How did my marriage fall apart? How did my family relationships fall apart? How did my career fall apart? Why am I not where I'm meant to be? And it was because the universe was telling me, Billy, you're made for something different. And I wholeheartedly believe that when you listen to that voice, it will guide you where you need to go. So I was in someone, an actually person I hired as a business coach for another little side business I did with essential oils. she reached out to me. She's like, Billy, I think you should look at this business opportunity. And I was like, you must be out of your mind. What are you talking about? I'm like just trying to stay alive here. My marriage is falling apart. Like my kids were very young. They're 7 and 8 now, or 7 and 9 now. And so I was just, trying to stay afloat, be a good mom. And she's like, just watch this video when you're not busy one night. So one night I couldn't sleep because again, my unconscious mind was working on a lot of problems. And I watched the video and I couldn't sleep. And I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. And it was this health supplement. And anyways, I started this business. And I started feeling that purpose again, like, oh my gosh, this is something I need to tell people. And I always started feeling when I felt that purpose, it gave me that drive and that ambition that I was lacking because I was just trying to stay alive. And one thing led to another and led to another. I met a hypnotherapist. I said, hey, can you come and do some mindset stuff on my people? Because I realized how people's mindset were so messed up when it came to their health. Like these
Mm.
people in their bodies for 40 years and thought in 2 weeks they're going to get healthy. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. I didn't know, but I just knew I needed to help them. I didn't have the skills that I wanted to help them move forward. And so I asked her to come and talk, and she did. And then she gave me a session, and I was just floored. I was like, what just happened? How did you get there? And she's like, well, I tapped into your unconscious mind. I was like, what does that mean? I don't even understand. And it just set me down this beautiful rabbit hole of just curiosity. I was like, oh my gosh, if that was possible, like what else, like you said, what else could be possible? And one thing led to another. I found my mentors. I did my training, which we teach now, which I'm so excited that you're taking in the fall. It was 4 board designations in 8 days. For me, legitimacy is important. That's why I did the degrees. That's why I did all the training. I wanted to have some legitimacy so that I know that I am setting myself up to some standards and ethics when I am serving. And to get 4 board designations in 8 days, for me, time was of the essence too, because I was still working full time. So I decided to make it happen. And it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. I knew about NLP. I wanted to be an NLP coach. I knew neurolinguistic programming is very powerful. I mean, Tony Robbins is like a billionaire now because of it. He focuses on state. And then I knew hypnotherapy was interesting because obviously I had the experience with the hypnotherapist. And I didn't know anything about timeline therapy. And that was one of the modalities. And I was like, what does that mean? And when I found out that you can heal trauma without talking about it and it's fast, my ears were like, my brain was like full on, tell me, please.
Mhm.
And to this day now, if I had to pick one modality that I do, it would be that one. Because what it does is it releases the top 7 negative emotions: fear, anger, shame, hurt, guilt, rage, and sadness. And then the top 2 to 3 limiting beliefs, which are usually one or a combination of these four: unworthy, unlovable, powerless, and not good enough. And those are our core wounds that us as a human species, we all create for ourselves from our trauma as children. Majority of it happens when we're children. And when you can release it and it can happen within a few hours, my life shifted. Because when we do our master level training, we go through our own breakthrough. We experience it. Our training is very experiential. We do the technique, we teach you how to do it, and then you actually go and do it, experience it as a coach and as a client. So as we're learning, we're actually growing and up leveling ourselves. And when I went through my breakthrough, this was last June, so just over a year ago, my life completely shifted. As you said, I'm a real estate investor,
Mhm.
took took off to the point where now my passive income has covered my monthly expenses, which, they say is financially free. That now I've taken a leave from my work and I'm retiring from policing after 20 years to do this service because I'm so passionate about it because I could see how quickly it can change people's lives. You don't need to go to therapy for years, which is what I did. And one thing that really proved to me how powerful this work is that my therapist, which we are mandated to go see therapists because of our work, she actually told me, she's like, Billy, you don't need me anymore. Wait a minute.
How
Are you
awesome is that?
are you telling me I'm graduating from therapy? Are you saying I've graduated? And I don't know anybody that can say that. And
Mhm.
that in itself is a testament to for years and years, 20 years of therapy that never allowed me to heal what I needed to heal happened just like that.
Mhm.
Now my mission is to, just as people know about hypnotherapy and NLP, is to get the word out that timeline therapy exists. It is a form of hypnosis. It's only been around since the early 2000s. And it was created by Dr. Tad James, who was trained by our mentor. So we're very close to the source.
Mhm.
And it is by far one of the most I'm so glad that you're going to experience this too. I think it's, if the entire world when one went through one session of timeline therapy, we would have a whole completely different world. Is
Mhm.
the
Yep.
most powerful thing I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And then here we are. If you would have told me a year ago this is what I'd be doing, I probably would have laughed in your face and said, "What are you talking about? I arrest bad guys for a living. What are you talking about? Higher self and unconscious mind and what?" And here I am because I
Yeah.
found my purpose. I followed the voice. I followed those clues when things started resonating with me, when I started feeling certain things and feeling that passion, it drove me towards where I'm meant to be. And now
Mhm.
I found the gifts that I've been given, and now I can actually use that to help serve others in such a more powerful way than policing ever could have.
Mhm. Mhm. And I think you said lots of really key phrases in there as we were coming along. Um, but this last one, if you start to think about the ease that you move forward with it, and I don't know if people realize when you struggled your whole life, you just assume that that's normal
Yep.
because that's the only way you know. And then when you find ease, you don't know what to do with that because you're waiting for the struggle to
Yeah.
lead you to the next struggle. And then when you discover you can actually just bypass all of that and boom, you're in a new spot. And it's like, how can that possibly be? But
Well,
it's
it's
so profound.
the wiring of our brains, right? Just like when we are born, we are like this blank slate, this beautiful essence. And then we're given all these programs and all these, strategies. And then our job is now to like, let's sift through all that. Which one is working for you? Which ones aren't? Which ones are yours? And which ones were given to you? Like the ones that
Mm-hmm.
were given to me by my family that told me that I couldn't be something because I'm a female.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that society gives us or media gives us or school or our friends. A lot of these programs that we are given are not ours. And that's why there's this big, shift in, the frequency of the planet happening now and this spiritual awakening that people are coming back into. Wait a minute. This is not the life I want. This is not the relationship I want. This is not the body I want. And they're realizing that this voice is getting louder and louder. And they're saying, no, I don't want this anymore. Except now they don't know what to do. And they don't know what they don't know. And so our job is to say, hey, we're the how to people. We want to get you
Mm-hmm.
from Pickham Island over to Solution City. We have the map. We got to figure out where you are, and then we can help you get there. We don't do the work for you. Like we're very adamant about the fact that what we do with people is not anything to them. Because again, this is just a program that we've been given. Oh, I'm sick. Let's go to the doctor and have something given to us to deal with it. It's another just strategy that we have created. So
Mm-hmm.
our mandate or our motto is that we hold up the light, we show you the way, and it's your job to walk. We will walk
Right.
with you. We will get in that rowboat with you, except you're going to do the rowing, and we will tell you which way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And what is so beautiful about this is we don't even we know that the unconscious mind knows where to go. That's why
Mm-hmm.
we call our unconscious mind the coach. We're just the tour guide.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to guide it to go where it needs to go, which is what we do with timeline therapy. It's very gentle. We're not ever talking about the trauma because we know now that the unconscious mind already knows what happened. We don't need to relive it because when we relive it, we refire that neurology, and we don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to upload the lessons. What were the learnings that needed to happen from those traumatic events? Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times when we're as children, we suppress it because the main job of our unconscious mind is to keep us safe. And as
Mm-hmm.
a child, we can't process some of the traumatic things that we deal with, even as adults. So what happens? It gets repressed. And then as we grow older, our unconscious mind starts presenting those, and those usually show up as triggers. And what do we say with triggers? Society says, I don't want to deal with it. That's a trigger. No, in our world, we're like, ooh, let's find the triggers because that means we can resolve it. Your unconscious
Exactly.
mind is presenting something to you to resolve.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so fun doing this work because we instantly see the shifts in people. We test and future pace all our techniques to see that it actually is working.
Mhm.
We're the only coaching industry that can guarantee our results in writing, which is why we are called results coaches. We aren't called mindset coaches. We aren't called relationship coaches, transformation coaches. We are called results coaches because we deal with results. We help
Mhm.
people get results because we deal with behavior. We shift behavior. And not
Mhm.
many coaches can say that, or any industry for that matter.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's a very exciting industry to be in.
It is, isn't it? I know. I know. Every day is just like I'm always excited. It's like, oh, the what happened or what just transpired with a client or in my group class. And it's just like this is just so awesome. So
Yeah.
awesome to be here and to be in the presence of so many beautiful people all on
Mhm.
that same journey. Yeah.
Right.
So I want to backtrack a little bit because you have two young children.
I do.
And you have the upbringing that you described. So, how is their upbringing going to be different than your upbringing? What are the
Way
pieces you're bringing in?
completely different. I know God gave me a son and a daughter for a reason. And it was because I have a chance to raise them the same.
Mhm.
And ironically, both my brothers never got a girl. They only have boys.
Oh, interesting.
That's not a coincidence. I know I had to go through all these things. And the reason why I am the first generation born, I was just talking about this morning. The reason why I am the first generation born here, because I had this mission and this purpose to end it. You know that movie that's just out in theaters right now? It ends with us.
Hmm.
Beautiful movie. It's from a book, but it's basically we can stop the cycle. And when these things, and I'm openly share this now because now my family is aware of it. I was sexually abused as a child by a family member for years and nobody knew about it.
Hmm.
Not a soul. And I kept it to myself. And when he died, I thought I'd never have to deal with it again. And so my unconscious suppressed it. I never had to deal with that again. Then when my daughter was born, certain things, certain words started triggering me and these memories started popping up. And I was like, oh, I haven't thought about that in like 20 years. That's weird. And now I know what I know is because the unconscious mind was saying, hey, do you want to maybe deal with this stuff that we've never dealt with? Because
Hmm.
it's traumatic, right? It's trauma.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
didn't even realize the power of how it was running my life when it came to relationships and feeling safe around men and all this stuff, which is why I've likely been single most majority of my life because I never felt safe, right?
Hmm.
So I only spoke the words out about 4 years ago for the first time to a friend. I confided, and then I started going to the therapist and I started talking about it. And I finally, this year in May, decided to share this information with my parents.
Hmm.
And, the first thing my father said, which I'm not surprised because that's the generation, well, oh, that was so long ago. Let's just, why do you have to talk about it? Just sweep it under the rug. Why are we talking about the past?
Hmm.
My mother, on the other hand, said to me that she was raped as a child and never shared that with me either.
Hmm.
However, she said that she did tell her mother, and her mother said, "Don't tell anybody because it'll cause a big scene. Like just don't say anything." So
Hmm.
unconsciously, she passed that down to me because she said to me, "Well, why didn't you tell me?" And I was like, "I don't know. I was a kid. I don't know. I don't know why I didn't." And now I know it's because unconsciously she passed that down to me that don't
Hmm.
say anything because nothing's going to happen.
Hmm.
And now I realize that all this unresolved trauma, all this stuff is passed down to us generationally. And in timeline therapy, we go past into past lives and past generations.
Hmm.
And in fact, I just did we do these timeline therapy cleanups monthly as practitioners to keep ourselves clear. I went back 21 generations this time. That's the farthest back I've gone. And it's because as I clear things, more things are going to come up, right? Because it's from the beginning of time. And imagine how much trauma I am releasing from the past, which guess what? Releases it from the future.
Hmm.
I know now that my daughter never has to deal with this. I am
Exactly.
clear it ends here and it ends with us. So now that my daughter will never have to deal with it, I'm having conversations with her, with my son too,
Hmm.
about private parts. And if somebody touches you, and what do you do? And what are you supposed to do when they started school, when they were 5 years old? Right. Because
Hmm.
then okay. And what, even with family members, because you don't think a family member is going to do that to your child, right? And predators are predators, and that's just it. And again, they're on their journey, and I look back at as it now to as horrific as it was. I learned so much. I became so strong and resilient and learned to take care of myself. And that has helped me so much in my life. And now I can be that beacon of hope for others that look, just because this happened, it doesn't need to identify who you are. It doesn't need to make your identity and create your future for you. That was the past. You're able to heal that and move forward and create the beautiful life that you want for you and the future generation. So I love that question. It is now I realize it's made me such a better parent, this work, because now I can speak to them in this language. I speak to them about neurology. I teach them state management techniques. Imagine my 7-year-old knows how to manage her state.
Mm-hmm.
She knows that she is in control of her thoughts and her emotions and her behavior. And that has nothing to do with who I am or what I'm making her to be.
Mm-hmm.
Also released what was really profound for me is that it allowed me to know that they're on their journey and I can control or protect them so that nothing happens to them. Because if nothing happens to them, then they're not going to learn their lessons. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not to say I'm going to do my best to keep them safe and raise them as, kind, human, compassionate, responsible human beings. And then it's my job to release them into the world and hope they still want me in their life, right? That's the biggest, for me. Like I don't have a relationship with my parents much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I want that for my children. I want to have that ongoing, beautiful relationship with them and still empower them to take control of their life and not rely on anybody else or even take what I say to question. Like I love that scene from The Pursuit of Happiness where the father says that, if someone ever tells you you can't do something, go do it, right? Hang on to your dream.
Mm-hmm.
Include if I tell you you can't do anything, question that too. And I love that because you're
Exactly.
empowering your children to take control of
Mm-hmm.
their life, which is what we
Mm-hmm.
do at work. And it's so fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a couple things I'd like to point out to people listening to the podcast, because as you were talking about the trauma that you've experienced, you can hear in your voice the trauma is not there.
No.
And I wanted people to realize that, because so many people, when they go to describe an incident that's happened for them, whatever it is, it's just a hardship or it is a full on trauma, you can tell by their voice where they are in their process. And in that process, do you want to stay in that place where every time you tell that story, you go back to being the victim? Or do you want to be able to say, I am the power of my journey, and here's where I am? And so I just want to bring that forward, because you said it with your voice, and for those people who are listening to the podcast, they couldn't see you, but your face, your expression, your eyes, everything is authentic to that. I don't own anymore. I
Yeah.
have the power of it to move me forward. And I think that was very evident in the words that you used too.
We call that
Um,
the hero's journey, right? We're always creating our hero's journey.
yeah.
And it's always morphing because you go from one victim island to solution city, and then, life happens. The key is you can go back to victim island because life will happen and things will make you sad and things will make you angry. Now it's a matter of how quickly do you get back to solution city so that you can start taking control of your life as opposed to life taking control over you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And that's what we say is like, yeah, I still talk about my trauma. I think it's important to share. And this is one of the biggest reasons I wanted to share it with my family, is because I wanted to start speaking my truth out because I kept it hidden for so long.
mm-hmm,
And when I can share my story, then others will be able to be given permission to say, well, hey, that happened to Billie, and look where she is now. Look how successful she is now. Look how happy she is now. Then maybe I have a glimmer of hope that I can go there too.
mm-hmm.
Exactly what we
Yeah.
do is that glimmer of hope is why we share those hard things that have happened to us. And a lot of people have had hard things happen, and people don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We encourage people to talk about it. However, don't get stuck in it. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Talk about it and then let's figure out how to get you out of it.
Yeah.
We honor what happened. I honor what happened to myself. I honor the grief and the pain and the sadness and the hurt and all those feelings. However, I don't let it run my current life or my future.
That's right. Yeah.
That's what timeline therapy does is it releases those emotions so that in the future they're not inappropriate or unwarranted. We're
Mm-hmm.
not creating zombies here. You are going to
Mm-hmm.
feel anger and hurt and sadness again in the future. However, it's not inappropriate or warranted,
Yep.
unwarranted, right?
Yeah.
It's appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Emotions
I
are
want,
good. Emotions are energies. Energy is, emotion is energy and emotion. So allow
yeah.
that to come through. We don't want to suppress it. We want to be able to work through it and understand, well, what am I supposed to learn here?
Mm-hmm.
What is the universe trying to teach me in this lesson? And
Mm-hmm.
once you take it from that point, then you empower yourself to move forward from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to bring out a second point that you had in that process, and for people to think about if they don't move forward and they just stay where they are, then as you were talking about those generations and breaking the pattern and the cycles, if we choose not to be the one to catalyze that and to actually make the motion go forward, then it means another generation or someone else in our family is going to have to take that role on. So, who better than ourselves to find the power within it and then to find that way to change what happens for the future generations? But I just wanted to bring that forward as people are listening too, because I think sometimes they think, well, I don't really have a lot that I have to change, or there isn't that much in my background that that's just not for me. But then you start to think about, gee, what would it be like if I was the catalyst? I was the catalyst who took all those generations and all those lovely lessons, and I packaged it up in such an incredible way that my future generations would be able to thrive in a way never imagined. And that's a really powerful place to be sitting. Um, yeah.
And what people don't realize is a lot of this stuff is out of their awareness. It's not in their conscious mind, which is why what we do is different is we tap into the unconscious, the things that are out of your awareness. And that's why it's so powerful because people are like, wow, I had no idea that I was carrying all this stuff. Same, just like I was saying, like for the, my childhood stuff that happened, I had no idea how much it was running my life because you're not
Mm-hmm.
aware. If I was
Mm-hmm.
aware of it, I'd fix it. And once I became aware of it, yes, then I was able to do something about it. And awareness is key. And as I said, you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And people get stuck in the mystics, they say that people are floating face down in the river of forgetfulness. They've forgotten who they are. And our
Mm-hmm.
job is to flip them over and wake them up and
Mm-hmm.
say, you're made for more. You weren't just made to be a housewife or made to be, an employee. You were made to really leave a legacy. All of us are given gifts, right? All of us.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we teach when our blueprint for success, for our greatest potential is already there in our higher self. Now, the only way we can access our higher self is through our unconscious mind because our higher self and our conscious mind don't talk to each other. So the only way to do it is through that quantum field. And that's why we do a lot of work in the quantum field, is so that we can access the higher self and bring down those beautiful gifts and those resources and all those skills that we just don't even realize that we have until we do the work to uncover that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when
Yeah.
people are just like, well, life is good, I'm like, is it? Couldn't it be better?
Mm-hmm.
You be, I don't know anyone that would not say more no to more money. I mean, everybody wants more money. To me, money just means I can give more. I want
Yes.
to get big to give big. Like we 10% of all our proceeds from all the courses we do go to Melissa's charity, the Girls Matter, the nonprofit, right? We always
Mm-hmm.
want to give back, and the more that we can grow, the more we can help others. And really, when you get to that really chunk up high level thinking of that we are all one, we're not here just for ourselves. We're here to be the best selves of ourselves so that we can help others do the same
Mm-hmm.
because others need more help. Some of us are a little bit more evolved and that we are here to teach others, right? That's why
Mm-hmm.
one of my types is teacher as well. No surprise. I went to school to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so if there's enough of us, as we say in our world, that to join Team Light, so that we can hold up the light. The brighter our lights are together, the
Hmm.
brighter we shine for others to come out of their darkness.
Hmm. Hmm. We're meeting today on National Grief Awareness Day.
Yeah.
So just with that phrase that you just said, I just wanted to just let people think about that, in that there's different ways of dealing with that grief, and there's different ways of shining a light on it. And as people are just, some people bring that grief around, they collect the anniversaries, they remember the death days more than they remember the birthdays, all of those pieces. But if you start to look at the love and the beauty that comes from those people that you may have lost, or your life, or a situation that you lost, whatever you might be grieving, but then to think about, if you shone a light on it, what would it be showing you? Where would it take you?
Yeah.
And as you're describing the opportunities, that the tools that you have, the tools that I work with, they just create such an incredible space to be. And I was kind of reflecting on the way that you can say things, and you can, even at volunteering, because that you want to give more, you want to make more so that you can give more. And if you think about volunteering, how some people say, well, I do this, and I'm exhausted because I'm giving all the time. That would be one way of saying it. And the other is, oh, I have the pleasure of being involved in this, and
Mhm.
this. And from that, I get gifted whatever. And just the phrasing changes things. So as we're looking at,
We're big on linguistics, right? We are very careful about the words that we say, and we say we don't like to say the words "I have to." We say "I choose to," because it's everything physiologically in your body as well when that
mm,
happens.
mm,
Yeah, I think people, again, this just keeps coming up. People don't know what they don't know,
yeah,
and everybody is on their journey. And when you get stuck on, yeah, like certain things don't work out the way you want to, and you have to understand that it's for the greatest good of all. So
mhm,
when like my marriage fell apart, I didn't want that. I chose to leave my marriage because of the reasons I had. However, did I want that? Was it ideal? No. And I know that was part of the journey. And I know now I'm an inspiration to other single moms, because, a lot of single moms live in victim island. I can't believe this happened to me, or they feel like disempowered. I'm like, well, look, I'm a single mom. I didn't get any financial help from the family or anybody else. I built everything on my own because I was driven, and you can too, as long as
mhm,
you get your own way. And when people lose people, like, yes, that is sad, and we honor the grief. And when people lose pets, or when they lose loved ones, or they lose marriages, right? You have to grieve those things. And in fact, we do in this work, you are grieving the old version of yourself.
mhm,
And there's a grief process there. People don't want to let go
yeah,
because it's new, right? And it's like when you're shedding your skin, it's like, that's why the butterfly is part of my logo, is because when you're in that goo, when the caterpillar is in that cocoon, and we call that goo phase, it is uncomfortable.
mhm,
And we know that, okay, if you can just work through it and understand that it's part of the journey, it's part of the transformation, part of the metamorphosis. You are literally up leveling yourself, and you are on your journey. Everybody in your life is on their journey. And instead of being sad about it, like you said, look at the beauty that that person brought to my life, or that
mhm,
animal brought. My
mhm,
dog was 15. I actually went to go see a taxidermist. Not for him, just we did some event like butterfly thing at her office, and she's like, yeah, people, they do that for their pets, and I say, I understand with dogs, they don't have the lifespan as humans do, and I
mhm,
know like, it's going to be hard when my dog is gone,
mhm,
and I'm going to look back on all the great memories that I've created with him, and then no,
mhm,
I'm going to get another dog, and then that dog's going to be part of my journey,
mhm,
and that's it really releases some of that. Oh man, I'm so scared of, obviously as a mom, like we're always scared something's going to happen to our children. And I release it that, what? I trust that my children are going to be here because that's their journey. And whatever happens is part of their journey. And I have no control over it because that's above my pay grade. And
mhm.
that connect that hold that it has on you. that, I'm going to lose this person. Well, instead of worrying about the future that hasn't happened yet, how about you just focus on right now what you do have? And that's why one of the tasking we give a lot of our students is gratitude journals. Let's
Hmm.
program our reticular activation system to look for the good instead of the bad. And again, this is just a program. We're
Hmm.
programmed the media. It's always like, oh, like let's look at all the negative. That's why I stopped watching the news. We're programmed, and the media is putting stuff into our unconscious to constantly look at the bad stuff. And
Hmm.
it's our decision and our choice to shift that to start looking for the positives.
Hmm. Hmm. I know we're coming up to the top of the hour. I wanted to bring one little piece forward before we do close, which is World First Aid Day is coming up. And a lot of people think about first aid as, how do you stop the bleeding? How do you mend the bone? How do you do that first responder that you would do as a policeman? But as we're thinking about first aid, these tools that you're bringing forward and sharing with people are first aid tools. Because instead of going through where you don't give any aid at all for a long period of time and you hold on to so much, it becomes a very heavy bag, or we describe it as the suitcase with more on a string. You've got more suitcases tied, and it just becomes very, very heavy. But if you start to think about these tools as a first aid tools, they're the first way you can respond to situations, and you can bypass years of trouble by using them right at the start with whatever situation has come up. Do you want to just make a comment in that regard?
Again, another program that we are given is that we deal with physical symptoms. In the work that we teach, there's different bodies. There's the physical body, there's the mental body, the emotional body, and then the spiritual body. We are so worried when by the time something shows up in your physical body, it's already been through the other bodies. And if you want to explain this as this is first aid for all your other bodies, because we don't pay attention to them. And that's when people get sick and they get these chronic illnesses and these chronic disease and chronic pain. It's because you haven't healed something above. You have to clear that mental body. You have to clear the emotional body. You do that spiritual healing because that's what timeline therapy does. And then it happens all the time where people are like, I don't know, my pain just went away. I was like, of course it did. Because the
Mm-hmm.
pain body is the last place that shows up. So if you heal it up there, it naturally will be released down here because we hold things in ourselves. That's where our unconscious mind is in our body. And so if we can think of that, pay attention to the other bodies too. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be spiritual to believe this. It's science, it's been proven. For those that follow Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? He's like heart and mind coherence. When we are in that coherence, that is when our body is able to heal itself. And that's why there's all these miraculous stories of people healing themselves from stage 4 cancers or all these chronic diseases that they've been living with for years that nothing that medical, the Western medicine couldn't fix. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for Western medicine. Let's put out the fire first in the body. And then now let's settle up there first. Let's work down the way that we need to as opposed to backwards. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just the way our society has trained us, right? You get sick, you go to the doctor, he gives you some antibiotics, whether it's the virus or a bacteria or not. I had a doctor like that in my 20s that used to give me antibiotics as candy. And I didn't realize what it was doing to my body, nor did I
Mm-hmm.
even have a concept that there were other bodies I had to heal. I just lived in
Mm-hmm.
my 3D world. It was just here. There was nothing else beyond this. And as you
Mm-hmm.
start opening up your mind, and the part of it is opening up your mind that there is more, that we do have, like, we have 5 higher bodies. It's been proven, right? They've, like, scientists have found these 10 shadow strands of DNA. And, all the mystics and all the spiritual, people have said, oh, yeah, it's about time. Just because you can't prove it with a microscope or with your eyes, you can't see, doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And it's been written in the ancient wisdoms. And our mentor, Dr. Kim Redman, she's been a part of the mystery schools for 35 years. She brings the neuroscience, and that's what I love with Dr. Joe Dispenza, is they bring that woo-woo together with the science to be like, look, like it's been written for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
So how about we're not the most civilized civilization as people think we're not. And so if you can open your mind and say, okay, well, maybe I do need to do some other healing. Maybe it's not just what I think. And it comes back. You don't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
So if you have things in your awareness, imagine what's out of your awareness that you need to heal. And if to do it with a modality like timeline therapy is so powerful and so fast, so gentle and so effective, and it lasts forever.
Mhm. And that's the other really key piece that I don't think people realize either, is that it's when we're always looking for the band-aid for things, find that medicine that's going to fix that one problem. We're not solving everything, we're just solving that symptom. We've maybe not looked in the right place, but that opportunity that then it's done. It's done. You don't have to come back here. You don't have to think about it.
Well,
You
that's
can
done. We're never done because we want to keep ourselves moving forward, right? We're never
absolutely, but we don't
done.
have to go back and revisit that one piece again, which
Yeah.
is
Once,
really lovely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful.
All right. So, how can people find you, and how can they engage with you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at go.mindspire. My website is gomindspire.com. We have a Facebook group that Melissa and I have just launched. It's called Amplify Results Coaching, where we do a lot of our programs and our teaching. And, on my website, I actually have a free ebook for anyone that wants to download it that it's called Resiliency is My Middle Name, How to Turn Pain into Power to Find Your Purpose. And it's got an assessment in there, so if people, and it's got some tasking, so it's a nice way to people for people to find out where they are. And again, just an inspiring story about my personal journey of how I've gotten to where I am. So they can download that for free. And yeah, I would love to hear from people. We're doing our next course in September, which is now full. And our next one, I believe you're doing is in November. If people are interested, it's 8 days and you get the 4 board designations. And we have a very insane and special that's happening. And for any of your listeners, if they want to reach out, we can give them a more further discount for that too, for their tuition.
Perfect. Okay, I hope people caught that. If you're as you're listening to the end of this podcast, it's well worth it because there you go. You have an opportunity to do it, and it's accessible for everybody.
It's
Thank you, Billy, for all that you've shared today, the insights and the way that you brought all the information forward, and particularly to that link of science, because people don't realize a lot of times that this all is based in science. It's just that we haven't been talking about it that way. And this is a great opportunity for them to go forward. So
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for the tea.
beautiful.
We're
You're
drinking
welcome. And I
first.
always enjoy pulling out the herbs and getting to know them better because as I get to know them better, that brings me to the tea in a much stronger way. And every time I go to pick up that for me is my friends, right? When I open up the tea cupboard and pull out the next tea that I'm going to have, that friend is sitting right there ready. And I just know my ally is right there to support me. And it's such a lovely, lovely opportunity.
All
So
right. Thank you so
thank
much.
you. All right. And thank you for listening. And please take advantage of the opportunity that's been presented to you. I will have the resources in the description. So then you'll be able to look that up. And the book again is Resiliency is My Middle Name. And it's a free ebook that's on Billy's site. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.